Welcome back to the channel, guys. So as you well know, starships play a major part in No Man's Sky because without them, well, you'd basically be screwed. And on top of that, over the last 18 months or so, we've seen multiple new types of starships being added into the game, with solar ships and interceptor ships giving us a total of 8 different types of ships. And with the ever-growing roster of ships and ship types, it can be daunting as to which ship type you should be playing with based on your playstyle. So I've decided to create this video to go over absolutely everything you need to know about starships in No Man's Sky. So I'm going to be talking about ship types, their bonuses, their technology components, what you can upgrade, and on top of that, throughout the video I'm going to be giving you 5 essential starship tips, so make sure you stick around until the end so you don't miss anything important. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. So let's start with the basics. As with many aspects of No Man's Sky, each ship type will have 4 classes, either C, B, A and S. C-class ships are the cheapest, have the fewest inventory spaces, and if there are any class bonuses on the ship, it's going to be less than 20%. These ships are also the most common ships for the same reason, they're pretty basic and very cheap. Sure, some of them look good, but they don't perform well at all. As you go through the classes, the inventory will tend to get larger, so B-class ships can take up to 3 inventory sizes below the maximum tier size and have a 20% or more class bonus on them. A-class ships will either have the maximum number of slots or 1 slot less than maximum and have 35% or more class bonus along with them. Now, it is important to note that S-class ships don't necessarily have the maximum number of inventory slots, as some S-class ships can have fewer inventory slots than other ships of the same type, but they will have a 50% or more class bonus. And here's a fun fact, did you know that each star system has 21 different ship designs in them? Well, you do now. There will be 7 shuttles, 9 specialist types, with 3 of them either being fighters, haulers and explorers. There'll be 4 more of a single specialist type based on that system's dominant race, and finally 1 exotic. Each of the ship's properties are randomly generated each time it lands on the space station or a trading outpost, with the only thing being consistent are the design and the tier. If you're in a wealthy system, it would be a good idea to wait for a ship design that you like, as you may come across an S-class version of it if you wait around a while. And that brings me on to my starship tip number 1. If you're after an S-class ship of any type, then the best bet is to head to an Outlaw system. There is a 5% chance of an S-class ship spawning in Outlaw systems, so that makes it more than twice as likely for you to get your hands on one over even some of the wealthy 3-star systems. Doesn't really surprise me with those damn pirates nicking and upgrading those ships. So, the spawn chances of each class vary depending on the economy strength of what system, so wealthier the economy, the more likely you are to find A and S-class starships. There is a 0% chance of an S-class ship spawning in a poor economy, a 1% chance of an S-class ship spawning in an average economy, and a 2% chance of an S-class ship spawning in a wealthy economy, and as I previously mentioned, 5% in an outlaw system. Now, this still doesn't sound like much of a chance coming across many S-class ships really now, does it? But at least now you know where the best places are to get S-class starships. Outlaw systems. And here is my tip number 2, and this once again involves outlaw systems. If, like me, you're a big fan of the new solar ships, you'll be happy to know that these have an 85% chance of spawning instead of a shuttle in an outlaw system, compared to only a 10% chance of doing so in other systems. So, step 1 of finding solar ships of any class is to go to an outlaw system. Right, let's move on to the different ship types and which ship type is best for which playing style, because each ship will have a different type of bonus. But to quickly recap, there are 8 different ship types in the game as the creating of this video. And those are shuttle, fighter, explorer, hauler, exotic, living ship, solar ships and salvaged, or as most of us like to call them, interceptors. So I'll start off talking about shuttles because personally I wouldn't recommend them for a number of reasons. Firstly, they don't look that good, they tend to have a blocky rectangular appearance, and they also don't tend to have very large inventory. More importantly is they have no significant class bonuses compared to other ship types. Their bonuses are overall fairly balanced, but they are all low value, so it's not great my recommendation is just to stay away from them no matter what your playstyle in the game is. Now, up until recently, fighter ships are one of my favourite types of ships in the game, and you won't be surprised to know that these ships have a high damage bonus to help you out in those space dogfights, and it's probably also why they're a favourite amongst pirates as well. They're also very agile, so it's much easier to manoeuvre around with them compared to, say, a hauler for example. Their base launch cost is fairly costly, however, at 25%, so make sure you have that launch system recharger and the efficient launch system upgrades installed, and If you want a fighter, it's also worth noting that the maximum cargo upgrade limit is smaller than that of other ship types, but you don't get a fighter for hauling loads of stuff around now, do you? And if you're after a fighter ship for yourself, the best place to look are Outlaw systems once again, and systems where the dominant race is for keen. Moving on to explorers, these ships have a high hyperdrive bonus on them, so you're able to travel further and explore the vast No Man's Sky universe quicker, hence the name Explorer. They also come with a low launch cost of 12.5%, which is half that of fighter ships. I'd still suggest you install a launch system recharger, but it's not as important for explorers. If your main aim of No Man's Sky is of course exploring, then these explorer ships are the ones you should be looking out for, because when fully upgraded, you'll be able to warp well over 1,000 light years in any given single jump, so you can go further whilst also using less warp fuel. And finally, the best systems to find explorer ships can be found in Korvax systems. Now I've mentioned launch cost a couple times already, so my next tip involves your launch thrusters. Did you know that if you take off from a landing pad, no matter where it is, so either at a base, a building or a trade terminal, you will not use any launch fuel whatsoever when you do take off. So if you don't yet have the launch thruster recharger installed, make sure you land on landing pads as much as possible so you don't have to constantly craft materials to refuel your thrusters with. If you're a player who likes to carry a whole load of different materials and resources around with you, then you should be getting yourself a hauler. Now these are some of the most expensive ships in the game due to their large cargo size, and the S-Class ones can occasionally cost upwards of 100 million units. But more often than not, they'll be costing you at least 40 to 50 million units, so you need to have a lot of money to afford the good ones. But with that, you get a larger cargo than any other ship. For these haulers, you also get a high shield bonus because those pirates will certainly be after you and what you're carrying. The downside is, however, they're a lot less manoeuvrable than other ship types because of this, but they're still worth it if you want a lot of resources easily accessible. And finally, the best systems to find haulers are Gex systems. So let's go on to some of the more rare ships, and first up we have exotic ships. You've probably seen these when you're on board the Anomaly from other players, and they come in slightly different shapes and designs. They are very rare to come across, so if you don't already have the coordinates to them, you're going to spend a long time looking for them. So as well as looking great, the upside with exotic ships is they're always S-Class, and they have the same manoeuvrability as fighters, and finally they have balanced bonuses at a very high level, so they're an all-round great ship to get your hands on. The only real downside is they can't hold as much cargo as some other ship types, but that's not really why you'd get an exotic ship, is it really? And here's tip number 4. If you want to get your hands on a really rare exotic ship, by far the quickest way to do so is to visit the subreddit r/NMS coordinate exchange and look for the ship you like the look of. The photo will have the portal coordinates for you so you can enter them and then find the ship instantly. It certainly beats spending hours on end hunting for them and waiting around on spaceships or trading outposts. Next up, let's talk about living ships. These are almost totally different to all other 7 ship types because they run on living technology, and the good news is they have a large amount of technology slots with the emphasis on damage output and hyperdrive range. Getting your hands on a living ship is a little more complicated and can take some time because first you need to get your hands on a void egg, which, if you want to know, you can buy from the Quicksilver synthesizer on board the Space Anomaly. So, living ships use biotechnology to function, meaning no synthetic technology upgrades can be installed on it. All living ships are again S-Class, and if you want to know how to get your hands on one, I'll link my video in the description below showing you the entire process from acquiring a void egg to getting your hands on the ship, so check that out after this if you want a living ship. So our penultimate ship type is the latest solar ship. These were introduced last year as part of the Outlaws update, and these ships have extendable solar sails of varying shapes and colours. And when they're S-Class, their damage outputs puts them on par with exotic ships. However, the shield strength and hyperdrive bonuses are significantly lower. Each solar ship is equipped with a Vesper sail, which increases their pulse drive efficiency, meaning that although they have lower hyperdrive bonuses, they have the best pulse speed and performance of any class due to this technology. The Vesper sail itself cannot be added to any other ship type either, and finally, the best system to find these solar ships, as previously mentioned, is Outlaw systems. So the 8th and final ship type is the salvaged, or as I and many others like to call them, interceptor ship types. These were added as a recent interceptor update, and like the living ship, these have unique technology components that can't be added to any other ship types, such as the anti-gravity well and the crimson core. They also use different resources to refuel some of their technology, however they do use regular ship upgrades. The Sentinel cannon installed on these ships typically has a higher fire rate than the photon cannon on other starships, meaning that although the damage per shot is lower, the damage per second is far higher than most other ships. And finally, these ships can only be found crashed rather than having them just randomly appear upon space stations and trade terminals. So at least you don't have to pay for them, right? Right, let's talk a little bit about starship technology components and upgrades. First of all, unlike freighters, at least at the time of recording this video, you can upgrade the class of a starship. So even if you can't find that perfect S-class ship, you can upgrade a lower class one to be S-class. It'll cost you a lot, but it can be done. Most of the starships in the game come with 5 key components pre-installed in their inventory: a launch thruster, pulse engine, photon cannon, deflector shield and a hyperdrive. Some ships will have efficient thrusters and a second weapon as standard as well. The important thing to know is most of these can be upgraded to improve the main stats of your ship. You can purchase any of these upgrades on board any regular space station, and you want to be looking out for the S-class upgrades for additional bonuses. Don't forget to link the ones next to each other so you get added bonuses as well. And also, if your ship has supercharged slots, especially ones next to one another, you're able to get even further improve your stats of your ship, so make sure you take the supercharged slots into account when ship hunting. So my next and final tip is which essential technology components you need to be installing on your starship to make the most of them out of the game. These aren't upgrades, I'm actually talking about components. The first one is the launch system recharger, which I've mentioned a couple times already. If you're planet hopping a lot, this is absolutely essential, as when you're wandering around on planets, it's going to recharge your thrusters at a rate of 4% per minute, so it'll save you having to constantly refuel them. And not to mention, it's even better when paired with efficient thrusters as well. Next, you want to install the indium drive, the cadmium drive and the emerald drive to your ship, because they're going to allow you to visit any star system in the game. Before you install those, you can't visit green, red or blue systems, which is what most of the systems out there. And finally, you want to install the economy scanner, because that will make it far easier to find some systems in the galaxy where there is a higher chance of finding S-class starships. So to recap some 5 essential tips when it comes to starships, at number 1, the best way to get your hands on an S-class ship is to head to an Outlaw system, as it's the highest chance of them appearing. At number 2, if you want a solar ship of any class, also head to an Outlaw system. At number 3, make sure you make use of the Reddit R NMS coordinate exchange to get your hands on some of the rarest ships in No Man's Sky in the quickest possible way. At number 4, use landing pads to your advantage, as they don't use launch fuel when taking off from them. And at number 5, I gave you a couple of essential components that you should definitely be installing onto your starships. And if you're watching this and you have any other essential starship tips that I haven't mentioned, feel free to leave them in a comment below. And there you have it, folks. There is everything you need to know about starships from the different starship types in No Man's Sky, which is up to date as of 2023. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can now also become a channel member as well, where I'll be posting coordinates to a whole bunch of super rare and unique items and places to visit. You'll also get some unique emojis and badges when leaving a comment. What's not to love, right? And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.